minutes.
How long you work out? Every day, every other day? Every day.
You'll come at that point, obviously. It's getting closer, I can feel it.
Catching up. Catch it. Jumps I did. My ankle. I'd love it. Yeah, the 101st isn't even mobile anymore. Now it's air mobile. Jumping wood.
The time is now 6 p.m. I would like to call the February 11th meeting of the County Board to order. I'd like to stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our roll call, the roll show that all supervisors but one are present. Item 4 would be approval of the agenda.
Omar moves.
Motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any discussion? Questions? Okay, we will call a vote for approving the agenda. Release. The agenda is approved. Item 5, members of the public wishing to be heard. Mr. Schmidt, Ken Schmidt.
Hello, thanks for taking the time to listen tonight. I'm here to talk about a couple highway projects. I've been against Highway T for the last 4 years or 5 years, voted against it twice when I was on the board. I don't see why the taxpayers of Chippewa County should facilitate the annexation of Wheaton, some of the best farmland in the county, into the city of Eau Claire. It's probably inevitable, but why are we, the taxpayers of Chippewa County, paying for this? You have other highway issues as well. The Highway T bridge, when it first came to us, our attention was 14 to 15 million, and they weren't too optimistic that number was high enough. Now it's up to 17 million. And I believe one of the plans out there is to build a new bridge next to it and then use the old one instead of a long detour. I talked to somebody from DOT. I happened to bump into him a couple weeks ago, and the subject of the Highway M bridge came up. And I asked him, you think 17 million is going to get it done? He says, well, maybe if you can reuse the old footings. So there's going to need to be some money allocated for that, probably beyond what is the whole number right now. Highway T, traffic moves very nicely on it. My kids went to work through Eau Claire during the Music Fest last year. There was no holdups. Traffic moved fine. Is it busy? Yes. My wife has drove that road for the last 20-some years, going to work back and forth, and it's never a complaint that she gets backed up or traffic doesn't move. It's one of the better county roads we have, probably, for its age especially. the state, from what I read at one point in time, doesn't even consider 4 lanes until you get to 10 to 12,000 cars a day. You're at 6 to 7 right now on that road. The other thing is that a statement's been made in the highway committee meeting that the commitment to fund the rest of the project, the other phases, was taken out of the resolution. However, line 128 and 129 in the current resolution state that list of municipalities that will be providing funding for the Highway T corridor. Chippewa County is still listed in there. Now, I suppose you can argue that by doing a piece in our county, that covers. But if I was the city of Eau Claire, I would believe that I would be getting help from Chippewa County for the phases further south also. And I don't understand why we should do that at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Judge Ben Lane.
Good evening, everyone. I'm wanting to speak tonight on the proposed Chapter 2 of Subsection 4 ordinance that you were hearing for the first time that Todd will be presenting here in a little while. I wanted to let you know that all of our judges are in support of this ordinance. I hope that you are in support of it as well. This ordinance provides a separate tool in the toolbox for our security officers to help them do their jobs. Right now, it's a murky position of what actually is a weapon in our county. And so when they try to enforce security issues in our county, knowing what that means and having the public know what it means and having our staff know what it means, it's all going to help things become more clear and help our building and everyone in it become more secure. In Wisconsin, our Supreme Court establishes certain rules that courts in every county have to follow. And certain rules require these courts in these counties to establish policies regarding possession of firearms by law enforcement officers who are not on duty, who are in courthouses for their own business as witnesses or on personal business, procedures for allowing possession of firearms by those who are statutorily allowed to do that, lists of prohibited items that the public is not allowed to bring into facilities, and notices to the public and employees about what those items are, about what can and cannot be brought into a courthouse. We don't have those policies right now, and the other thing about those policies is they do not have teeth. This ordinance connects the dots on all of those items, provides those policies and procedures, the lists, the notices, everything that we need, and it gives us an enforcement mechanism as well. So this provides a great opportunity to get a lot of things done in one document, and I want to thank Todd and everyone that was involved with helping to put it together, and I urge you to support it. Thank you, and thank you for all you do for Chippewa County and making it a good place as well. I'm going to let you have a good meeting. Bye now.
Thank you, Judge. Seeing how there are no more members of the public wish to be heard, we move on to item 6, the consent agenda, and entertain a vote to approve the consent agenda.
Supervisor Goodman would make that motion.
Lotz will second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion or questions? Okay, if not, then we will call the vote to approve the consent agenda. Supervisor Shoebridge, she's not registered. It's okay. All right. Yep, consent agenda is approved. Item 7, reports. Item 1 would be the state of Chippewa County.
Thank you, Chair. Can't go back, huh? Oh, wait. Sorry. All right. So first of all, my name is Randy Schultz. I'm the Chippewa County Administrator for another month. And I want to kind of give a state of where Chippewa County is and just an opportunity to thank everybody and kind of say bye, I guess, in a way. So As I prepare to retire as the county administrator, I wanted to thank everybody for the honor of serving for Chippewa County. I want to congratulate the soon-to-be appointed Chippewa County administrator. They're coming into a very dynamic and well-run county before I was here. Hopefully I've enhanced that a little bit, but great organization coming into, and I continue to see that as we move forward. So congratulations, whoever is lucky enough to get this job. I'm proud to report that Chippewa County is in strong fiscal position. It wasn't a strong fiscal position before I started. We are continuing to be in that strong fiscal position. And the reason I put this in here is not all counties are in this position. As you've heard in the news, you hear different things. I hear it a lot because of the group that I kind of hang out with, obviously the administrators. There's counties that are using short-term borrowing. There's counties that are using fund balance to have ongoing expenditures, things that this county has not done and would never recommend to do. We have a very strong fiscal staff, and Lori's done a great job, and the county board has done a great job keeping that, understanding that one-time expenses are one-time revenues and ongoing expenses are ongoing revenues. If you keep that philosophy, that's a great way to govern, I think, and this county's always done that, so I think that's great. Fostering growth. So our Economic Development Corporation, as you guys all know, Charlie Walker, the Director of Economic Development, does a great job. As you heard from Forward Analytics last month, Chippewa County is doing better than most in the state. I think a lot of that has to do with Charlie and the economic development he's been able to bring in. I said at the executive committee, my only sadness is it took me 7 years to understand Charlie, and now I'm late. So you guys are gonna have to figure out somebody else to understand Charlie, but he does a great job. He really brings in the business and maintains the business that's here, which I think is a great approach. He doesn't just look at bringing in new businesses. He looks at the businesses that are currently here, and he looks at the full county, which I think is great. He's done good work in Stanley and in other communities across the county. He doesn't just focus on Chippewa Falls, which I think is a great perspective to have. So the new business park, as some of these county board members have been on here a little longer, this is something I wish was further along. It's not, but it is moving forward. So that is a good thing. One of the things I proposed was to get a joint commission between the city and the county to run that business park. I think that's a great methodology to cut down the time it takes to bring in business, and Charlie just said this at the Economic Development Committee meeting earlier today, they're trying to check you off. They're not trying to check you on. So businesses come in, and the more hurdles they are, the more likely they are not to come into your community. So being able to have one organization that can run that park and cut down the having to go to the city and then come back to us, I think would be a great opportunity. There are different organizations across the state that do it with that I've seen with like airports. I haven't seen anything with economic development, so it'd be something you guys are on the forefront of, which Chippewa County kind of history is that way. Chippewa County is very forward thinking, doing things other counties haven't done, so I think that would be a great opportunity for the county overall if that can get done. It's something I'm gonna definitely keep an eye on because I think it's something that can really help this community for many, many years, 30, 40 years. So innovation, entrepreneurship. I was amazed when I came here and found out what is done to try and get new businesses here, get entrepreneurs here, the encouragement they have, the resources they have, and that's just going to continue growing, I think, as the community moves forward with that. One thing that challenges, obviously all communities have challenges. One that surprised me when I got here was meth. I dealt with meth in Lincoln County, but it kind of went away when they changed the laws and they couldn't cook it anymore because Lincoln County was the cooking capital of the world for some reason for meth. That really went away, but when I came here, it really hit this community hard. There's a lot of out-of-home placements, kind of the results of that, generational stuff going on. So the first maybe 3 weeks I was here, because I had to start the budget, I started in February, and we're thinking about budget all the time, we knew we had to get a handle on the out-of-home placements. We blew through $1 million fund balance in about 3 years. And I got all the department heads that were involved with, had anything to do with the meth epidemic, out-of-home placements, all those, I don't know, probably 8, 9 departments. And we all sat down and talked about where does the funding have to go, because we're limited funding, right? I've talked about this several times. You're gonna do a levy position, it typically takes 2 to 3 years to get that done. Everybody in that room agreed where to put the money. And if you know anything about counties, you don't wanna give up your levy because it's hard to get it back. But they all felt what was the best thing for the community, and that ended up really being social workers, trying to reduce their caseload and getting services in the house. Huge difference. So last June, our out-of-home placements really just kind of dropped off, and we've been doing really good since then. We had a surplus last year. We'll have a surplus this year. It's kind of ticked up in the last few weeks or month maybe, but I think having that foresight and having all those department heads decide that's kind of when I first had a hint that we had something really special going on here, because a lot of department heads are not even going to be in that room because you might take their levy from them, you might take a position from them, something like that, and there was none of that resistance here, so that was fantastic. The other thing when I got here is the criminal justice services that really Rose Byer kind of spearheaded and was going on before I got here. That the work that she does pre-trial and diversion and integration back into the society is really a front runner. Rose, if you don't know, trains all over the state. The state's always asking her to train. Nationally, she trains. She gets flown all over the place on other people's dimes because they want to know what we're doing and how she did it. So that's very, very, very special for the county. And then the sheriff's office, obviously there's been some challenges there, but our employees remain committed, maintaining public trust and security across Chippewa County. Our employees have done a great job with that. Obviously, we had the hospitals go away. That was a big hit for everybody. This thing must be on a timer. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. It's my last one. I could. Yeah. But lately, obviously, we've had some good news with Aspires coming in, the community hospital getting some traction. Has got an update on that from the community hospital tonight. I think you guys are going to hear some good news moving forward. So very positive. Again, this community just coming together and really taking that and running with it has been really special to see how they've been able to do that. EMS services, we're just starting to kind of hear about that in Chippewa. It's been a statewide, nationwide issue. The community is really starting to have that conversation, how to deal with that, and I'm sure moving forward, the community will answer that concern and come up with a good solution for that. So supporting our workforce, our infrastructure, employees, Chippewa County values its dedicated workforce, and I encourage it to remain committed to competitive compensation and professional development. One thing counties are really good at is taking their really good employees and making them managers and then forgetting about them. They don't train them. So that's one thing I did when we got here. We started doing leadership training. We're currently doing leadership training for our department heads and our managers. Counties just typically, across the board are not good at that. And it's a whole different world doing one job to the other. So really encourage that to continue. You have a great mechanism to do wages. We do it every 2 years by ordinance, I think, or resolution, whatever it was, maybe policy, it's every 4. But I really recommend staying to that every 2 so you don't get that big hit every 4 years. And you'll be doing that this year. We'll be looking at that. So, but our employees are awesome. They do a great job. Health insurance is rising costs. Chippewa County or Chippewa Valley, for some reason, is a very high health insurance. Wisconsin's very high health insurance compared to the nation. And this is the first year our broker said that they've seen cancer being the highest cost. Normally it's musculoskeletal. It's, bruises, hurt backs, things like that, broken limbs. That's usually your biggest cost, but across the nation it's cancer. So hopefully that trend reverses itself and we get to see some of those costs come down. Chippewa County, again, has been very innovative on having near-site clinics, having doctors of PT, doing the things that we're trying to do, prevention. Reform Health did a great job, has a great program for weight loss, which I took advantage of. And it really does change your health moving forward. Road and infrastructures, maintaining and improving transportation, which you're going to hear some about tonight, obviously, is a priority. The challenges of too many road miles, I say too many road miles in Chippewa because it's unbelievable how many road miles Chippewa has compared to a county the same size. It's about double from where, I said this before, where I came from, Lincoln County. They have about double, you guys have about double the miles here. And that's a real challenge. And there's really not a good solution to that. We're doing having some mechanisms for financing, and we'll talk about that a little later. But and I know everybody hates the word registration fee, wheel tax, but it's really your only mechanism to raise money, which is unfortunate until you can get the state to do some other things. But so that will continue to be a challenge. Just grateful to our employees, my DOA team. Thank you for your dedication, hard work. Work every day with them. I will truly miss the debates and discussions we've had, either one-on-one or together. I allow everybody to have voice their opinion, and I have a really strong DOA team, which is very good. I said this before. I was a one-man show. I was able to do policies, procedures, bring it to the board, get them done. Here it definitely takes more time, but at the end of the day, it's a much better product. Just bringing in all the staff that we do to look at every angle of every resolution and policy that comes forward. So department heads, elected officials, I hope you have felt respected and included in the process of bringing change to Chippewa County. I always say it's about elected officials. They have to put up their jobs every 4 years. I don't really think people understand what that's like unless they've had to do those jobs. So I have a lot of respect for them. They still got to do their job. They have to do everything all the other department heads have to do, but every 4 years they got to ask the citizens if they want to be able to keep their jobs. So really appreciate the work they do. To the employees of Chippewa County, dedication and hard work have been the backbone of our success. Nothing happens without the employees. Talking too much. I've tried hard to build a culture of collaboration, professionalism, and excellence. Your efforts make tangible difference to the lives of the residents every day. And that's what I tell them. I told them at our in-service day. The days you don't feel like getting up, we all have them. The days you're dragging sometimes. Just to remember, everybody here is contributing to the same purpose, and that's trying to make our citizens' lives better. And we have a dedicated staff through and through, so they do a great job. And as I said, it's been a privilege to lead such a skilled and committed team. Forward. To the citizens of Chippewa County, thank you for your trust, partnership, and shaping the future of your community. I was told once I was going to come here how great this community was. It was hard to believe in my own community. A lot of people would come up and say, oh, I had my sister live there, brother lived there, or cousin or something. You're going to love that community. And me and my wife have really found that to be true. You got a great community here. You got something very special. Everybody says that, I think, about their own community, but to come from the outside of the community and be able to see that and live that, you truly have something special in Chippewa County. To the county board, I deeply appreciate your thoughtful leadership, meaningful discussions, and dedication to serve our residents. I've been saying this since this new board came on, and I've had good boards, but I think this is the best board I've ever had. You guys ask thoughtful, straightforward questions. You don't ask like the got you questions, I would say. Seems like every county board I have one or two members that are trying to catch us in something, even though there's nothing to really catch us in. But they ask us questions that we couldn't possibly know the answers to because we don't know the answers to everything. But you guys don't do that. You're asking questions, you're engaged. So really appreciate that. And I've been singing that from the hilltops, especially with my administrative group on Monday. So give yourselves that's a great credit to you as individuals. So together we have faced challenges, seized opportunities, and built a stronger Chippewa County. So looking ahead, Chippewa County is positioned for continued success, but challenges remain, just like they do in any community. Employee compensation, to stay ahead of or stay even with, compensation is tough. Health insurance, again, is going to be another issue, and then infrastructure. Those are really the three things that I see moving forward, and that's a challenge in every municipality across the state. So it's nothing new, but just make aware of kind of what I see. I'm confident in the ability of the board and employees and citizens to meet these challenges. With strong fiscal standing, established policies, and dedicated workforce, county's future is definitely bright. And then my closing remarks, that weren't supposed to come up there yet. So serving as Chippewa County's administrator has been a great honor. What everybody has said about this community is true. To the new administrator, I wish you success and fulfillment in this role. You're inheriting a county in good standing, supported by extraordinary people. Thank you for your support, trust, and collaboration over the years. And then before I conclude, I have to thank my wife. Through long hours, and this job is long and it is challenging, projects, stressful situations, she has always been my greatest supporter. Her love and patience have always allowed me to serve Chippewa County with dedication. I could not have done this without her, so really appreciate her. So all I have, thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Now, move on to item 2, the president's executive orders comments.
Yeah, we put something in the, I'll let you take it over. Let you call this up quick. I sent this memo out to the board, and it really doesn't say much. Obviously, it's because I really don't know much. Unfortunately, this has been one of those situations where we get bits of information and then information changes. But only what I did is when this came out, and I actually found out about this because I'm the acting interim DHS director, and I came in the morning and I had a meeting on my calendar from the federal and state DHS people. I didn't even know there were federal ones. So, but it was the night before, I guess, the announcement came out. I don't have cable, so I don't watch news. And then so they had a meeting and just really talked about what was happening. So what we know right now is that everything's on hold. There's a New York judge that kind of put everything on hold. I did put out to our department heads, if you get any notifications, let me know if something's going to stop or they're stopping the grants. I only received one notification of that. It's actually a DOJ grant through Rose's office. And what we did with that, instead of calling or putting in the request for payments every quarter, me and her talked about doing it every month, and she's actually doing it almost daily. So anytime we have an expenditure, she's requesting the money. So if it would happen to go away, you wouldn't have a big expense. That's really the only thing that I've heard that if we've got notification on. There's been lots of talk about a lot of other things. But my understanding, it's grants and loans is what they stopped or they're going to stop or whatever's going on with that. But so that's what we know, I guess. I'll try and answer any questions if you have any. I'm not going to be able to answer a whole lot, but we're doing what we can about this.
Any questions, Randy, on that?
Supervisor Hennig.
Yes.
I know this is impossible to read the future, but have you done any worst-case scenario planning? If the bottom falls out, where do we go?
No, because we don't.
Plan for contingencies.
No, because we don't even know what the bottom is. I mean, it's a huge difference. If it's grants and loans, it's not a huge hit on us. You start talking Medicare or Medicaid and CCS programs, it's huge. And there's no way, you're not going to be able to fund it. There's no funding for it. So, but there has been no talk as far as I know about that part of it. So there's really no way to even have a contingency plan. We've talked a lot about this on our Monday meetings with administrators, and there's just no way to come up with a contingency on the worst case scenario. So it's almost a waste of time. Unfortunately, I kind of lived through this. I mean, we all did when we went through COVID and when we went through ARPA. Laurie really lived through ARPA. And they keep changing the goalpost, or they keep changing the rules, and it just gets exhausting, and you spend all your time trying to figure it out, and you're not doing what you need to be doing, and that's continue to kind of look what our purpose is and what we're doing as an organization. So no, we haven't looked at worst case scenario because we don't even know what that is, unfortunately.
Any more questions? All right. Move on to item 3 is a 23 to 25 CIP project update. Lori?
All right. Hopefully this will be pretty quick tonight. All right, so here's, this is the same presentation I give each year in February, just for a CIP update. This is the history slide. It's just a little bit of history about when it was implemented. And remember, in June is when each of the, when it will come to the county board for CIP resolutions for the following year's budget for 2026. And capital projects for the CIP plan are anything that have costs of over $50,000 and have a useful life of more than 3 years. And this slide shows what the sales tax funding and bond funds utilization for the last 3 budgets have been. And, oh, this is yay. This is the radio tower project, and I am really happy to tell you it's complete. Since it started in 2012, it was the gift that kept giving. And so per resolution 45-23, we actually had transferred the remaining funds to the radio towers operations account, and it was $264,227. So for the 2021 projects that were still outstanding, it was for a generator system update. And this project has actually been dropped. After talking to Larry and Randy, we had talked about that we know it's going to be more money, and we haven't really gotten a good scope of the project about what we're going to do. So we're going to actually, it was only funded with fund balance, so that money is going to go back into the fund balance for facilities and used for future projects, and maybe it will be used for this in the future. For the 2022 projects that were still in progress, it was really the jail windows and the dump truck replacement. And they're both completed. For 2023 projects, they're all considered complete except for the LCFM remodel. That should be finalized by the end of first quarter here in 2025. And here is the remaining 2023 projects. They're also all complete except for the courtroom audio visual system. The problem with this project has been that, first of all, there was a delay with getting equipment. And then the second delay is now that we're having problems with getting the vendor to come in to install the equipment. So I know the last I had talked to Andy, it was going to be within the next month that they figured they would be here. For the 2024 projects, the one that I would talk about is that LED lighting upgrade and the parking lot maintenance are both now complete. The DHS remodel planning is on hold per the county administrator because we have some security projects, of course, you know, with the projects that were prioritized by the county board. So we're putting that first before we work on the security or the DHS remodel project. And here are some more of the 2024 projects. All of those LCFM projects on the bottom, or really close to the bottom, are complete. And we are leaving that radio equipment replacement project open until we get the radios delivered from the Van Orden grant. Very similar to what Randy talked about. This is one of them that would be a grant for the $100,000 for those radios. I'm not really sure with executive order what's going to happen. We're going to have to try to get the reimbursement when those come in right away. But if, in the worst case scenario, if something happens where we can't get that, then we'll have to bring back a resolution to you guys for approval to pay for that out of sales tax. That is worst case scenario. And here are the remaining 24 projects. That sheriff's equipment project is now complete. It was just a whole bunch of different equipment that they ended up buying, radar units and ballistic shields. And here are the approved 2025 CIP projects, which were approved last June. Really, most of them, you got to realize this is as of December 27th that I had prepared this. There was really no project started yet, but I'll tell you that the building automation system That's really gotten a good start already with Larry from facilities. So otherwise, most of them are just starting. And here's another slide with the 2025 projects. And here's the final slide. So in summary, the department heads have received the CIP forms for the 2026 budget, and most of them have already went through all their policy committees. I know there's one more that's outstanding at LCFM. And a new recommended plan for that 2026 budget will be presented in June by the county administrator along with all those resolutions for CIP. And that is all I have. Any questions?
Any questions for Lori?
Thank you, everybody,
All right,
for your
thank you.
attention.
On to item 4 is the final ARPA funding project review. Randy?
Okay, I will not have to worry about these not going by fast enough because I'm moving through these puppies. Yeah, final. So we're very happy to present this, the ARPA funding project review. We are done with ARPA, which we got all our funding and very excited about. I will have each department head come up, or each different person when the actual projects come up. So they'll be coming up and explaining them and be able to answer your questions better on the individual projects. So utilizing ARPA funds, I've talked about this to death, but $1.9 trillion, and then the categories that we used or could use to spend the funds in. Allowable areas, these are really the main ones that we used. If you see the interest down there, that $798,000 is what we received in interest, and we utilized that, I think, very wisely, and utilizing for our employees for some longevity, really appreciating our long-term employees. Then here's kind of just the history. I think an awesome thing that happened here is on 7/20, the county board passed identifying guidelines for the procedures. I've had counties as soon as this last summer still do this. They didn't have ways, they didn't have policies and procedures how to move forward with the ARPA plans, which, and I've also heard them use them for ongoing expenses. So I think Chippewa County did a great job of utilizing these funds for really what they were intended to, is one-time expenditures. And the county board passing that, and I think we even tweaked that maybe during that process, and came up with a really good process on how to move forward with spending the monies. We met with cities, villages. We really didn't have anything we collaborated on. We really found out early on that they were going to spend their money on broadband or infrastructure, which is what we spent a lot of our money on too. But so those kind of the process. Total funding availability, we got 2 stanches, they call them. Equal amounts. You can see the separation there and the total amount, and then how much we actually ended up with the high interest rates that are available right now. Broadband expansion really early on. Broadband jumped all over this. Really have gotten broadband out to a lot of areas that would not have received broadband without this allocation. They used the money, their own money, and then grant money to enhance these ARPA funds. Longevity bonuses, this is what I was talking about. We did 2 different ones, a 5-year and a 10-year. And our employees got a lot of positive feedback about this, because unfortunately, kind of what happens when you're talking about recruiting and retention, it always feels like we're recruiting and not retaining. And they're both equally as important, and longevity maybe even a little more so. So this was a way to catch up for some of our employees that we implemented a longevity policy before this, the board did. This helped them catch up for the 5 and 10 year. Then CVIC, we gave some money to, $20,000 for a conference room. That was other funds that were spent. And then contracted services. This was so confusing trying to figure out ARPA. I read the first volume that came out and it said volume 1.1 or something. I'm like, that's not good. If it's 1.1, that means there's gonna be a 1.2 and a 1.2, and Lori really kind of took it over after that and spent a lot of time, and they're still changing ARPA, it felt like, till almost the end. And you working with the feds on anything's difficult. And they had to basically build this whole system when ARPA came out. So it was very frustrating. But we did, so Sickage really helped us though, because at the beginning, we didn't even know what qualified. I mean, you couldn't even, you'd read it and we'd say, this is what it says. And then they would say, no, that's not what it says. We're like, yeah, I'm sure it does. But so we really wanted to make sure, because if you didn't spend it right, you had to give the money back. So we wanted to make sure that we were utilizing the funds on something that was qualified, and Sickage helped us do that. And then I'll have Kurt, the Chief Deputy, come up and start. And as we go through this, when each department comes up, to come up forward, the department head, whoever's speaking on it. And it's the ball back and forth.
I just have one screen.
Oh, you want to get
I don't know who's that. Okay. Okay, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Kurt Dutton. I'm the Chief Deputy of the Sheriff's Office. I've talked a fair amount of time on radios with all of you. We ran into a problem years back where we were the victims of technology. Technology and radios was advancing so quickly that some of our radios wouldn't even take the updates, and they weren't that old. So the decision was made at one time, what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a capital improvement project 3 years in a row to change over all of our radios. We got through year one, and then we were fortunate enough for ARPA to come along, and $190,000 of ARPA went towards the project, and Senator Van Orten's grant of $100,000. So with those two combined, we're able to knock a year off and get everything done this year. So that's how we ended up. The picture you see up there, the jail radios, those go on the vests here. Those are analog radios. They cannot communicate with the patrol radios because it's analog. The patrol ones are digital. You'll see the one on the patrol on the left, that goes in the squad, and then the other one goes on the vest. And those are digital capable, meaning if we ever have to switch over to digital, which we might have to do in the future, we're prepared to do that. That's it.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, Linda Schweikert, Director of the Land Conservation Forest Management Department. The allocation or decision to do ARPA started right as I started. So my first year here, I hit the floor running, learning what the previous Director for Land Conservation proposed. But really the staff responded well, and we were able to develop a program quite quickly. Our program was two parts. It was remediation and prevention. So you've probably heard many other departments talk about the nitrates in the drinking water. Chippewa County has been testing for many years, identifying that nitrates in the drinking water is an issue. And finally, we were to a point where what can we do? Is it continued testing? One of the first things I did is send it out to all the experts in the state of Wisconsin, and they're like, nope, you have a nitrate in the drinking water problem. And we were told, let's stop testing and start doing. So as Randy had indicated early on, Chippewa County likes to be the first to be out there in the forefront. So it's not like you can look to your neighbors and go, okay, what's working in Dunn County or what's working in Clark County, because they were just starting to test to see where their issues were. So the first part is the conservation practices. We wanted to see what can be done in the agronomic side to start slowing down the increase of nitrates in the groundwater. And we implemented a cover crop program where we identified the nitrate-sensitive soils, the highly permeable soils. We identified the landowners who were in those areas, farming in those areas, and doing a competitive ranking program to do a 4-year cover crop program. So they got all their money up front in the first year, but they agreed to do 4 years of conservation cover And I'm happy to say we're done with the third year. We have one more year, and every single one of the questions was, well, what if they don't plant it? Not a single one yet. Knock on wood, I got one more year. Hasn't even, balked or anything. We did soil health test the first year, and we're going to come back and do a soil health test in the last year. So the program in and of itself we had to spend the first half of the money. We were allocated $500,000 for land conservation. We needed to spend the first 250 before we were allocated the second 250. With that, programs across the county, landowners are planting cover crops themselves. NRCS, the Federal Conservation Department, has indicated an increase in landowners wanting to plant cover crops. So it was a practice that not a lot of farmers thought they could implement this far north, and to take the risk out of it with the cost share program really did spearhead that practice being taken off by our farmers in our county. The second half, we then went to, so this is something, we know it's going to take a while to reverse the increase of nitrates in the groundwater. So we also wanted to provide something for the landowners now, the homeowners that cannot drink their water because nitrates are too high. So we formed a strategic committee to discuss different options. And the committee, after a few months, came up with these community refill stations, identifying the townships that are throughout the county that are in the high-risk areas, and providing a free water source to these residents throughout the county. So in the time that we had, was again trying something new. We were able to get one in Anson, Auburn, Lafayette, and Wheaton. Wheaton was the first. And Wheaton was right there at the very start. Then the other townships, once we got kind of a process going, the other townships then started showing interest in the program. So we're now in the third year of seeing how they work in the winter. We now have heat tape to the two that are not attached to a building. But that's what happens when you're trying something new. You keep learning. So, questions?
Any questions? Thank you.
I'm Brian Kelly, Chippewa County Highway Commissioner. This was our initial ARPA plan that we came up with. The county board had opted to spend $8 million initially on road improvements. And so we took that back as a team at the highway department and came up with the plan to give the county the most bang for the buck we could come up with. And we wanted to do as many miles as we could. So we focus on low volume roads that don't necessarily make the cut when we're scoring our rankings, because we factor in traffic when we rank our roads for improvements. But we wanted to do as many miles as we could, and by doing low volume roads, we could go, they weren't the thickest paved roads and they weren't the widest, so we could do a lot of miles. And so we did, we planned to do about 27. In the initial plan, we ended up doing about 36 miles of roads over 3 years with the initial funding. Kept our crew very busy, and that's a good thing. They were all happy to be busy. They were all very proud of the work when it was done. Morale was really high. We did a few projects in 2022 was our kind of our ramping up year. We did a bunch of culverts for the 2023 paving. And then here's some other projects we did. We did a chip seal in 2023 with ARPA funding. Then in 2023, we got into doing a lot of paving. We did Highway Double T from 27 over to the New Cobbin Bridge in 23 with ARPA funding. We did Highway X in the city of Stanley, a joint project that they helped fund. And then in 2024, we did Double A and Double D, and also F with the original $8 million. As the projects wrapped up, in other departments and with interest and things, there was additional funding available for highway. So 1.99 million of additional funding was added to the 8 million. And of course the work was already done, all the paving's done for the year by this time. So what we did was we took a couple projects that had levee in them, Highway Double O and Highway Double H, and we transferred that levy into our contingency so we can do more work in the future. And we used the ARPA to pay for those projects this last year. So this is Highway HH was just an overlay project, and then Highway 00 out in the apple orchards both turned out really good. A couple of things with ARPA that we learned as we went. We kind of knew what would happen, but mentioned the morale, also the machinery revenues. We fund all of our equipment replacements with machinery revenues from the projects and charging our customers the state rates for machinery. So our equipment revenues came up, and that'll allow us in the future to purchase additional equipment to replace probably some of our worn out dump trucks. But other things, it was challenging. The schedule was very challenging, but we did it all without working Fridays and Saturdays. Crew really stepped up, and it was very efficient. The prep crew was getting the next job ready, and it was ready in time for the paving crew when they showed up. So it was very smooth. And we just took care of a lot of roads that we wouldn't have otherwise been able to. So the low volume roads, we did a lot of them. We ended up doing 41 miles of paving in the county. And so it was a huge boost to our pavement preservation program too. Any questions?
Any questions for Brian? Nope, thank you.
Good evening. I'm Larry Ritzinger, the Director of Facilities and Parks. So with the ARPA funding, there was a number of projects that we looked into. And the first one I'll talk about is the firearms range. Back in June of 22, the county board approved a resolution to permanently close the firearms range. So that entailed tearing down some of the older buildings, doing some lead remediation, leveling some berms, and we've got all of that work completed. At this point, we're just in the process of selling the property, and hopefully in the next few months, we'll complete that as well. There was a before and an after. The parks has a 10-year park master plan, so this ARPA funding was very timely with that. We were quite a few years into the park master plan, and the ARPA funding allowed us to really push forward with a number of projects and move that right along. So this last funding will be all on parks that we'll talk about. The first project is new bathrooms and showers at the Otter Lake Park. The original bathroom there was a pit toilet. It was end of life for sure, and really needed to be upgraded. They didn't have any showers there as well, so we went ahead and tore that pit toilet down and installed a new bathroom. So there's a couple shots of the new facility there. I will say it's been really well received by the park patrons as well. They enjoy the showers and flush toilets and all that good stuff. So the next project was a new bathroom at Pine Point Park. There's two bathrooms at Pine Point. The main bathroom is on the south end of the park, and that has showers, and that was recently replaced maybe 5 to 7 years ago. This north bathroom that we replaced here was another pit toilet, a wood structure, end of life, really needed to be upgraded. So this funding was used for that as well. And that's what the new pit toilet looks like there. 2 stalls. Another thing we were able to do is there was a number of picnic tables that were quite aged throughout the parks, and I can't tell you how many picnic tables there are, numerous picnic tables. So we were able to put a really good dent in replacing the oldest picnic tables and new ones. And so with that, we ended up purchasing 53 lightweight folding, what we'd call campsite picnic tables. The old tables were extremely heavy, and every fall we had to put them away for the winter and then get them out in the spring. It was really a backbreaker, so the park staff really appreciate this investment here, I can tell you that. We also were able to purchase 13 heavy-duty, what we call heavy-duty picnic tables. They've got a green plastic coat on them, so they're very nice tables as well. We got 2 covered picnic tables that were powder coated as well, provide a little shade and so forth. And we had 6 powder coated steel benches that we installed throughout the parks. So you can see some of those there, the covered table on the left, and heavy duty, and a bench and a lightweight. The other thing that we were looking at was some automatic firewood dispensers at the parks. And it always seemed like a little bit of a reach to get these installed. They're a little pricey, while this ARPA funding allowed us to get there. So instead of patrons having to purchase wood when the park caretakers are there, and that averages about 5 or 6 hours a day, now we've got firewood dispensers that they can purchase wood 24 hours a day. 2 of the parks have good cell service, so we're able to put in dispensers that take credit cards. And the other park, Otter Lake, has no cell service, so we had to go with a cash-only dispenser. And the cash-only is on the left, and the that takes credit cards is on the right. The good news, or bad news, is we're selling a little more firewood, and the guys have to cut and split more firewood. So they would say that might be bad news, I'm not sure.
Any questions? Thank you, Lori. Move on to item 5, the update on the Chippewa Valley Innovation Center.
I sent this memo out in January. Just wanted to kind of go through it real quick. So this innovation center was started in the 80s. Again, something that was not well known about or other counties have done. It was a collaboration with the city of Eau Claire and the county of Eau Claire and Chippewa County Economic Development in Eau Claire and Economic Development in Chippewa County. But unfortunately, because of ongoing capital expenses and fortunately some other additional resources available within the community and the area of the valley, the board or the commission, whatever they're called, decided that it wasn't feasible to continue doing this. So they made the decision to dissolve this. Supervisor Erickson's on that. Me and him had lots of conversations about that because we're trying to figure out, can they do that? Who put the money in? So we're able to figure that all out. We did get our money out. We did have money in there for a revolving loan fund. They paid that back. And then what they're doing with any additional assets, except for that $10,000 that they have in there right now for kind of finishing everything up, is half's going to economic development in Chippewa County, half's going to economic development in Eau Claire County. So those monies will be available. I believe all the funds were through grants back in the day. I think it was when the Unaroyal went out in Eau Claire. That's how all that came about and how they were able to start this this organization. But so it's dissolved now, and Charlie assures us that there's other organizations and other resources in the community that still help entrepreneurs. So that's good. So Jim's really the expert on this. So if you have any questions, Supervisor Erickson would be more than happy to answer. Any questions on that?
All right.
Good.
Thank you.
Yep.
Now move on to department reports. First item is our new agenda item we started is the monthly statements of claims filed with the county.
As you'll see in your report in your packet, there were no claims filed from the last meeting to this meeting.
Item 2 would be the county highway T corridor and county highway bridge funding. Ryan?
Hey, hello again. I have some new information and some review for some of you, but I just want to make sure everybody's up to speed on what's going on with the Highway T corridor. We have a important resolution to talk about tonight, a little bit later, and so a lot of the same information is probably in this presentation, but I just want to go through it all and make sure everybody's up to speed on this for that decision. So this was initially going to come to the January county board meeting. And right about the time we went to the exec meeting, we got some new cost estimates from our engineer. And we decided, since the highway committee hadn't had those cost estimates when they approved the resolution, we would take a step back, let them see the cost estimates first, and then bring it back through. So here's where we are tonight, seeing the report that they've already seen last month. So we'll talk about the Highway T corridor expansion, a little bit of the background, and also the Highway M Chippewa River Bridge. Those projects are both kind of coming due at the same time. So we got to make sure we have a good plan in place and be able to fund our other projects as well. So, and then after I do the background, I'll get into the funding approach. So the Highway T corridor, basically we say it's from the North Crossing up to Highway 29, but really there's some 4-lane on each end of that. So the real limits are Alpine Road on the south end and 33rd Avenue up by 29 Pines on the north end. So it's about 3.5 miles of road that needs to be widened, and 2.3 miles of that in Chippewa County. So most of it's in Chippewa County. Also, majority of it's in the city of Eau Claire already too, at 2.2 miles. So the purpose for this is really to improve safety. Right now, we've got about 8,000 cars a day out there. Our traffic engineers are forecasting it's going to double to 16,000 cars a day in 10 years. And in 20 years, it'll be at 20,000 cars a day. So we're not seeing a terrible amount of crashes yet, but we know if we keep that a 2-lane road with that kind of traffic, we're going to have some big problems. So we're trying to be proactive and not reactive. Generally, if what they're telling us is if it's 10 to 15,000 cars a day, you really should be designing it for 4 lanes. So we're approaching that and definitely going to exceed that in the next 10 years. Claremont Avenue, just south of the North Crossing, is about 17 to 19,000. So we'll be approaching that, when this builds out. This is our stakeholder group, the city of Eau Claire and Chippewa counties, and the towns of Union and Wheaton. The city in both counties have been paying 32.67% of all the costs so far, and the towns have been paying 1%. So the official mapping process was done a couple of years ago. In 2022, the official map was recorded by both counties. Basically, that kind of locked in the footprint of the future corridor so that we didn't have a bunch of development happen in that area that was contrary to what we want to do in the long run. So we didn't want to have to buy new buildings and move new driveways. We wanted to identify the footprint, and so that's on file now. So that controls what kind of development can happen out there until we build the 4 lanes. So that was kind of one of the resolutions that gave me my direction to keep this project going. Was the county board was supporting the project in 2022 and 2021 with that resolution. And then there was another resolution in 2021. We were at the time trying to get some federal raise grant funding. We kind of thought we might get it, and we said, well, we want to have county board support before we accept that funding. We don't want to get $25 million of federal raise grant funding and find out that the county's not going to support paying our local share. So at that time, the board was very supportive of the project again, and that was, again, keep directing staff to keep moving the project forward. So the next thing as a stakeholder group we decided to do was bring in an engineering firm and do 30% design plans. And so we selected Jewell & Associates. We interviewed a couple firms, and they were the firm we chose. And they completed the preliminary design in January. So the 30% plans are done for the entire corridor. But we're going to break that into phases, which I'll talk about in a minute. We feel like having this 30% engineering really shows that the county is committed to the project, and that's the stakeholder group is committed as a team, and that's going to improve our grant applications in the future and be more competitive. And it also gave us better detailed cost estimates and moved us and our next step towards construction. And we have been committed to the project at Chippewa County. 23 and 24, we had spent about $108,000. I checked today, it's now $156,700 that we've spent on corridor mapping, funding applications, and the 30% engineering. This is a little cross-section of what's out there right now. Two-lane, regular two-lane highway, 12-foot lanes, 6-foot paved shoulders, just under 8,000 cars a day. And this is what we propose to build, a 4-lane divided highway with a raised median in the middle, and concrete pavement, bike and pedestrian accommodations, roundabout intersection control at the major intersections. Just a much more modern highway. We are showing bike and pedestrian accommodations. We found out from WISDOT, the DOT, that that's going to be required, so we don't have any say in that. We have to accommodate the bike and pedestrian traffic out there, so that'll be done. And this is phase one. Basically, there are some things that are unknown about the south end of the project, and we have to start on one end or the other. The stakeholder group has all agreed that we're going to build phase one from the north going south. So we'd start at 29 Pines and match into the 4 lanes, continue south with a roundabout at 30th and another roundabout at 20th, and then tie in just south of 17th Avenue. So we pick up that little neighborhood right there. 20th Avenue is where the Eau Claire Event District is. So we've had traffic problems with them. And not only do they just have Country Jam, but now they're adding more festivals. They had presidential campaign visits out there, one that was particularly a big nightmare for us. And so we know that a 4-lane roundabout would be a huge improvement out there for them. We did make some efforts to minimize the impacts on the existing homes out there. Basically, the 2 lanes that are there now are going to be the northbound lanes. And there's less homes on the west side of the road. And so we're shifting the 2 new lanes onto that side and the bike path. And so we're trying to avoid as many of those homes on the east side as we can. Even by doing that, we're still going to have 2 homes at 20th Avenue that would be complete relocates. And then right where it says County Highway T, there's a farmhouse there. Actually an empty farmhouse that they use for storage would need to be purchased, and their grain bins would need to be relocated or purchased. So, and we, the way that works, you pay a very fair price. You get an appraisal for them. They have the option to get a second appraisal. If they don't like yours, they can find somebody else to get an appraisal, and we pay for it. So, the very last step would be eminent domain, but very, very rarely have to do that. I haven't had to do that here. So, so the costs for phase one, basically we found out are going to be about $16.8 million. And so the resolution, we're using 17. That's for design and construction. And so that gets us all the way down to where it says Music Road. The next couple phases, phase 2 and 3, our phase 2 would be basically from the phase 1 on the right side of the map there down to Venture Drive. That's phase 2. That's partly in both counties. And then down at Venture Drive, south of that, is a big proposed grade separation project to get a bridge over the Union Pacific Rail. And so phase 2 is kind of, a similar price per mile as phase 1. It's just a little bit shorter. So they're estimating about $12 million for construction of phase 2. But the real reason that we're kind of debating whether that grade separation is even feasible, the estimate came in at about $30.6 million. They gave us a pretty high number based on some unknown things. One of them was we haven't heard from the railroad how long we're going to need to make our bridge to get past their tracks. So right now we're showing the maximum bridge length of spanning the entire railroad right away. So we know it's probably not going to have to do that, but this early on in the project, you're not going to get answers like that from the railroad. They're going to start dealing with you when you get into final design. So we don't have an answer what bridge length we're going to need. And then also they were trying some retaining walls that were very expensive. We asked them to revisit that. And so by doing that and cutting back on the amount of retaining walls and a different type of retaining wall, they estimated about $6 million less. So we're way too early to know accurate costs on phase 3. And that's another reason that that's not phase 1. We just need to do a lot more design work and look for different funding for that kind of work in the future. So we'll continue with this phased approach, and then Eau Claire County has been the lead agency of all the projects so far. That doesn't mean they're doing any more or less work than us. It just they're on paper the lead agency when we submit the applications. Only one agency can be the lead agency. So just stressing that phase 1 is entirely in Chippewa County. Phase 2 is in both counties, and phase 3 would be entirely in Eau Claire County. So the stakeholder group is committed to the overall success of the project. That's why Eau Claire County is agreeing to pay 32.67% of phase 1, because they know that we're committed to the whole project too. And so when the time comes to do phase 2 and 3, we're not committed in the resolution to do that, but it's kind of the understanding that we have as a stakeholder team that we're all doing this together. We've been busy trying to find different funding sources. We applied for 2 RAISE grants. Very extensive process to apply for a RAISE grant. Each time we have to hire a consultant. It's just a whole different animal than any of my staff or I know how to do. We were unsuccessful though both times, and then we were unsuccessful for a MPDG grant. We did receive $10 million of congressionally directed spending funding from Senator Baldwin and Congressman Van Orden's offices. So that was a huge benefit to the project. And then Eau Claire County just found out that they did not get the infra grant for the grade separation project. So there's no funding right now. There's not even a funding application in place right now for funding on that end of the project. But we are going to continue to try and drive the local costs down. There's a program coming up called STP Urban. We would certainly be trying for that, as well as additional state and federal grants. But Eau Claire County they did receive the $10 million of CDS funding. It's for them, but they're choosing to use it in Chippewa County. So that's another thing about the project, why it's really important we do it now. That $10 million is going to go away if we back out of the project now. There's an intergovernmental agreement that Randy and I need to sign. So the town of Union and Wheaton have already signed it. The city and the county have already signed it. We're the last ones, so hopefully if the resolution passes tonight, we'll be signing that tomorrow. And basically all the resolution does is commits us to 32.67% of the local share of phase 1 only. This is kind of the schedule we're looking at. We completed the preliminary engineering. We're continuing to search for additional funding. This year and next year, we'd like to purchase all the right-of-way and get that taken care of, so that's in place. And targeting the final design being done by 2026, with 2027 and 2028 construction. Like I said, we'll sign the intergovernmental agreement. We've completed the preliminary design now and continuing to search for the funding. So, is there any questions on that before I jump into Highway M?
Yes, Supervisor Gutman. Oh, Supervisor Kelly?
Thank you, Chair. I guess, so say we do go forward with this project, but how much more, like in road maintenance and man hours, is this road gonna cost us that leads to nowhere? Like on our end for Chippewa County, we don't have any, like what business do we have, like,
well,
actually out there?
I mean, the stakeholder group has had a lot of conversations about whether this is appropriate to be a county highway. So that's something we're going to be pursuing probably legislatively, is a jurisdictional transfer to make this a state highway. But if that doesn't happen, we get paid general transportation aids by, about 19.5% of our costs. So we'd get additional transportation aids for the additional miles, but otherwise, yeah, it's going to be more miles that we'd have to maintain. Another thing I've been upfront with the group on is I'm not interested in maintaining that trail. We don't have other trails that we maintain. That's more of a city niche. So, hopefully in the end, at least the trails will be maintained by the city.
And then the other question I have was 32.67% of, like, what? Is it of the remaining 7 million? Or is it of the whole project?
Of the local share. So right now, phase one is about $16.8 million. We have $10 million of CDS funds, so that's $6.8 million locally. So our share would be, about $2.3 million with the 32.67. We have to, with this funding, we have to pay at least 20%. So if we go out and get more funding, it's going to get maxed out at 20%. But that would get our share down to 1.1 million. If we can get another 3.5 million from STP something, that's going to bring our share down even further.
Thank you.
Supervisor Guzman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do you have any idea why the grants that were applied for, what were the reasons that those were denied?
Yeah, a couple of times we did have the opportunity to do a kind of a debriefing thing, and it's nitpicky things. They have so many applications that they have to just kind of pick you for something. And we took the critiques from the first time on the raise grant, we fixed all that and resubmitted it with all that better, and we still didn't get it the second time. And the second time, you need to fix this. So it's tough. It's very competitive. They get tons of grant applications, and we thought by having the professionals do it for us, that would improve our chances, but we haven't been successful yet.
Were some of the ratings based upon decreased points awarded because of being a more rural county? Okay.
There are some, I think there's some diversity and equity things in there that we didn't meet, yeah. Yep.
And then another question, what about the current farm and 2 homes that potentially would be disrupted from this? What have been the concerns from those folks?
It ranges. We've heard from people that are impacted that, why is this taking so long? I just want to get it done. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to move. I know it's going to get bought. To, they don't want to go, but they understand. Every one of those people have been at the meetings, and they've been talking to our real estate people and our engineers, and they know what's coming. So it's not a surprise, and they're going to get a fair price. So hopefully we can make it as least painful as possible.
And then in those projected costs for phase 2, or whatever phase that would be, if that's, I'm getting mixed up on which phase that is that included in those amounts that you gave us? Is it 16 million for phase 1, correct?
Yep.
In phase 2, is this when those would be displaced?
No, they're all in phase 1.
They are.
Yeah.
So the 16 million with the 10 million coming in from the grant, or not the grant, but from the discretionary funding, that's all part of that amount figured in.
Yep. And that's why we can start right away now. We can start buying right away with the CDS funding. So to keep the project on track this year, we'll probably start buying right away.
Then one last question. Do you know what data, how do they calculate the data in regard to, we're saying right now that there's currently about 6,500 vehicles or something like that. And the projection is, within a decade, we were going to be up to however many thousand. How do they predict that?
The traffic engineers look at the land use out there, and they look at the growth projected for the city and what traffic's coming through, what new traffic is created by the development. So, there's a whole science that goes into it. I don't pretend to know it all, but they're definitely the experts in coming up with that number.
Okay, thanks.
Supervisor Lotz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How much does it cost for a roundabout?
I don't know. I usually build these bigger roundabouts, but I think we've been spending a couple million per roundabout.
Okay, do we really need two on a 55-mile-an-hour road? That's gonna cause some congestion, I would think.
We looked at all types, I can tell you that, and that was kind of where the stakeholder group landed. It would be that or signals, and we don't own any signals. And that was part of the debate too. Chippewa County doesn't want to have signals when we're done with this. But I like roundabouts. I feel they're safe, even if it slows people down a little bit. The crashes are very minor in a roundabout versus what can happen at intersections.
So, because I drive that road to get to my mother's house multiple times a week. And the only time I get stopped out there is by that train track in Eau Claire County. So, it just seems, it's a 55-mile-an-hour road for most of it until you get to Eau Claire County. But people are gonna have to slow down for that roundabout, because I don't think you're not gonna drive 55 on it, right?
No, but it's going to look a lot different out there in 10 years. I mean, it's going to be all built up in 10 to 20 years out there, so it's going to be completely different.
Is
when you drive.
there companies looking to buy and build out there? Like, is there gonna be a Quick Trip out there pretty soon?
I don't get to hear about that, but I mean, the city is annexing north every year for a reason. I mean, they have plans. I don't know what they are.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Hennick?
Thank you, sir. Part of my question was answered previously. Do you expect a serious economic growth from businesses to grow up along that corridor in Chippewa County to add to our tax base?
Yes.
Thank you.
Supervisor Sedlitz.
I guess I'm not going to sugarcoat my comments, but I'll hit more of it during the business agenda item on it, but I totally oppose this Highway T project and think we should put all of our funding towards the county highway bridge. The residents of Whedon do not want our rights taken away from us when this whole thing gets annexed in, and it's going to get annexed in. And that's probably why they know what the numbers of traffic is going to go up on T, is because the development that Eau Claire is going to do. So I don't see where economically it's going to develop anything for us on our sales tax or anything, because I don't know how much we got from Country Jam last year on sales tax or anything, but I've never ever seen them numbers, but I hear a lot what we get from Rockfest and stuff like that. But the highway setbacks are horrible on this. They go right up to people's houses. The sidewalk to nowhere is because the sidewalk to nowhere is going to end up being a big residential development on the west side of T, and on the east side they're going to put commercial and industry. And us people in Whedon will not ever get to hear anything on it, because once it's annexed, it takes the voice of Whedon out of the whole equation. Right now, we're 5 acres on the Chippewa County side, 10 acres on the Eau Claire County side. And as soon as they annex in, they can make lots, residential lots, on 100 by 200 foot, lot sizes. Totally against it. Township of Whedon ain't for it. I got traffic reports here on accidents that'll show that there's really hardly any accidents in County Highway T. But in the township of Whedon, there's a lot of accidents, but they're all on Highway 29, because Highway 29 spreads the whole span of the township of Whedon. But I'll hit more on when we get to the business agenda, but I'm totally against this.
Supervisor Shoebridge.
I've heard a couple times that we don't have in our budget enough to maintain what we already have. About what percentage of the roads can we maintain in our budget right now, do you estimate?
Well, maintaining includes a lot of things. We're on a plan to pave like about 10 miles a year. So we have 489 miles that we're replacing 10 miles a year. That's low, but we're focusing more of our money on maintenance. So, I'm trying to get to 50 miles of chip seal, eventually get up to like 70. That's where we need to be. But right now we're closer to 40.
My question is that, are we able to, if we stop expanding, are we able to maintain all of our roads currently with the current budget, or are we gonna have to increase taxes to maintain those roads eventually here?
Eventually, we're gonna have to do something with revenue, because we're starting it once ARPA's done, we're going back to historic funding levels where we're not gaining, we're losing.
Okay, Supervisor Peterson?
Just a quick question, Brian, on that. Is it gonna be limited access then, like no new driveways, or, what will they do, like, between the roundabouts, you know?
Yeah, there won't be driveways, you know, it'll be, the businesses will be building frontage roads or connecting to the side roads. There won't be any more driveways added to the road.
Supervisor Kempe?
Is there any chance, like Joel was saying, that Eau Claire will annex that in to Eau Claire County?
They're already, yeah, they've been annexing already, and I wouldn't be surprised if they annex it all eventually.
So I guess the other
The city.
question is,
Yeah, I'm sorry, the city, yep.
I guess why would we stick our money from Chippewa County in there if they're just gonna take it? Ain't that kind of foolish?
Well, it's still our road either way. I mean, County Highway T is gonna be County Highway T, whether it's in the city or Chippewa County, you know, Wheaton, doesn't matter, it's still a County Highway T. So if it's not safe, then it's up to us to do something with it, no matter whose jurisdiction surrounds it.
But will they just annex it if we don't do nothing? Like if we vote it down, would they still annex it?
Well, they've been annexing already with 2 lanes, so I don't know why they would stop, but yeah.
Supervisor Erickson?
Just a clarification. If the city of Eau Claire annex, the land still stays in Chippewa County. In other words, Chippewa County still gets the taxes. And the other question I had is, right now, Eau Claire is gonna cost share the 32.67%. Then does that obligate us to cost share in phase 2 and phase 3?
No, it doesn't, it's not gonna tie us into any set amount of funding. It's just we're supporting the whole project like they are. And eventually we're gonna have to negotiate to pay a fair amount for the future phases, but I wouldn't think we're entitled to pay 32.67% of a $31 million bridge. I mean, that's not fair. We're gonna have to negotiate what's fair.
Supervisor Mueller?
Supervisor Erickson just cleared up my question. Asked that. That's exactly what I was gonna ask. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Supervisor Hannick?
Yeah, I can tell you this is an absolute truth. Eau Claire treats Chippewa County, city of Eau Claire, differently than the city of Eau Claire, county of Eau Claire. Our roads get plowed last, or there's seriously degraded services from the city to deal with that. Wheaton's gonna have issues. And the only way Wheaton can protect themselves is if they turn themselves into a village. But I live in the city of Eau Claire, county of Chippewa, and the services are very poor there. So that's what Wheaton is gonna be facing.
Supervisor Romar?
I'm on the highway committee, and we've been talking about this for, I guess, 2 years now. A couple different times I've traveled up and down that Highway T corridor so I could get my mind around what's there. I think the important thing is what a thoroughfare that's going to create from Claremont Avenue all the way up to 29. And I think that the development is going to follow. You have the music festival there and the other industries around there. If you look on the west side where they're talking about putting a lane, there's only 3 buildings along there. And it looks like that makes really good sense. In my mind, I think that we have to figure some things out that we're going to lag behind or we're going to try and move forward because we know that traffic is going to build there. That's a given. And I think that might even be a minor or a small estimate. If you look at, I think you quoted like 8,000 a day right now. During that fest, you've got those groups that are going to come through there, huge crowds. And I think there's going to be more and more of that occurring as it gets development in there. For my opinion, I think this is something that's needed, and I support it.
Supervisor Seidlitz.
Once again, this driveway to Eau Claire, for example, the festival grounds that they put there, when they annexed it in, it took anything from the power of the township of Whedon to have any say in that property. And for Rocky's question, they can get all the way to 30th Street right now, the city of Eau Claire, so they have it right all the way up to 30th, so they just got that little short stretch to Pines 29, which is a vacant field, so they can get that in no time, but yeah, we hear about the festival grounds, all the traffic, but once again, they elected to put themselves there. They elected to screw everybody on the 20th Street Avenue with the plowing, like everybody said, because that road don't get plowed, because now it's an Eau Claire road, not the township of Whedon. Yeah, the services are gonna be horrible for everybody on Whedon.
Is it too late to be a village?
It's probably too late.
Any more questions on the county T corridor?
Okay, keep going on M then. So we probably talked about M quite a bit already, but just so everybody's on the same page, this is our biggest bridge in Chippewa County on the county system, 798 feet long. It's the 5th longest county-owned bridge in the state. It's about 75 years old, 6 spans, very deep water there, 33.5 feet of water, so it's a very tall bridge. And the bridge is just getting to be in rough shape. It's 12.2 out of 100 sufficiency. It's old. That's the 3rd lowest out of 3,100 in Wisconsin. So what's happening, where you see those in the picture, the blue plates where the truss connectors come together, those are called gusset plates, and some heavy loads have caused a number of those to buckle. So that's why the weight limit is down to 20 tons from 40 just a couple of years ago. So we're trying to build a safe river crossing that can accommodate today's heavy loads, especially the emergency services. We know that whenever this bridge is closed, it's going to be a 15-mile detour down through Cornell, but that's going to be more painful if it closes unexpectedly before we're ready to replace it. Currently, the 20-ton weight limit is basically the weight of a school bus and nothing more, so it has a big impact on local businesses and the ag and timber industry as well. And it's difficult to keep the heavy loads off the bridge. We've done things with cameras and strain gauges. We put these gauges on there that basically are calibrated for a 20-ton weight by a 20-ton truck, and anything that causes more strain in the beam than that triggers a photo. And back in November, those were vandalized, stolen, thrown into the river or something, but they're gone. So we know that we need to keep the heavy loads off there somehow to buy more time for this bridge, and especially for the tourism industry in the summer as well. So we're moving forward with 30% engineering plans. We brought on Ayers and Associates, signed the contract a week ago for them for $167,000 to complete 30% plans. Again, we're doing that to be more competitive in our funding applications and get better cost estimates. Right now, we're just going off of a very early cost estimate they gave us for $15 million. So that's our next step, getting towards construction. Internally, we had some savings on the Highway G bridge. That bridge was funded at 80-20, and then the state made some changes to the funding program and awarded us full funding for that project, which freed up $418,000 that was transferred on the end of the year this year, January 1st, into the Highway M Bridge construction fund. So that'll more than enough be adequate for the 30% engineering and hopefully any other maintenance or unforeseen issues that come up until construction. So most likely these days, a bridge like this will be a concrete girder structure. We don't know the number of spans and the size of the beams yet. That's all got to be looked at. You know, if you go less piers in the water, you save money, but you have to get bigger beams to have longer spans. So that all gets sorted out in design. We're going to widen the bridge to about 30 feet. And also a lot of talk about, can we keep the existing bridge open during construction? So that's something that we always look at, especially on a bridge like this. And good thing about AIRS is they were involved in doing that on the Highway 27 bridge back 10 whatever years ago that was, but probably longer than that. But they were involved in designing that project, so we're going to take a serious look at that, see if we can somehow keep the existing bridge open to traffic during some of the construction anyway. But even that, we're probably going to be a 2-year construction project, so 11 to 14 months for construction. So we've been trying for funding. 2023, we were denied funding by the state local bridge program. Basically, we submitted for a full $12 million to get 80-20 funding on that. They have some rules in place that cap you at $6 million, so they asked us to lower our funding application to $6 million. I said, our application's for 12, do what you want with it. We can't afford $9 million locally. So they denied it. So then last year in the spring, I traveled to DC. I met with Senator Baldwin's staff, and they put together another CDS request for us for $10 million. That was lowered by the committee to $4 million. And right now it's tied to an appropriations bill that's basically got a deadline in March. So hopefully in March, unless they extend the deadline again, we'll have an answer. I spoke to one of her aides last week, and he was cautiously optimistic that we could still see the $4 million of funding. So we're hopefully going to find that out here in the next few weeks. Again, we'll apply for 2025 local bridge program funding when it comes out this fall. And so we know we're going to be capped at $6 million, but I think there's a pretty good chance we should get that. So if we can keep the $4 million of CDS and the $6 million of local bridge, that makes our share roughly $5 million. If we can somehow find some different funding to get our share up to 80-20, which will be required, we could be as low as $3 million, but we wouldn't be any lower than that. So the schedule, by the end of this year, we want to have our 30% engineering done. Continue to search for different funding sources and finalize the design by 2027. And also look at construction in 2028 and 2029. So we're going to continue with the funding, complete the 30% plans, and monitor the existing bridge. So we've been working with the strain gauge company. They're from Maryland. They're going to come out here in March when we can get the DOT's bridge access truck. And they're donating 2 more strain gauges if we buy 2 more. So basically, we're getting 4 of them for half price. But we're going to be doing some different things to keep them safer and out of harm's way. And also more with security cameras on the bridges. So hopefully, at least if somebody does something to them, we can find out who did it. So we're going to be working with law enforcement. Once we have the strain gauges, and if we can get dialed in on any repeat offenders, that's when we can get law enforcement involved, because we really don't notice a lot of repeat offenders. But we can't have law enforcement sitting out there until we know more of a window. They're not going to sit there for a week straight and hoping to catch one person. So that's it on Highway M. Before I get into the overall funding plan, is there any questions on that?
Supervisor Kelly.
Thank you, Chair. 2 buses per day across that bridge with 55 students roughly. What are your thoughts if something happens to them kids? Most catastrophic event, right? Bridge collapse. Now we have 55 students in the water. And here we are with the 3rd lowest bridge in the state, and it's in our county, right? And we're just sitting here, we're gonna wait until 28, 29 to fix it? Worried about a highway?
Well, if we did it now, we'd be paying $15 million locally, and we would still have 3 years of historical and environmental and right away and everything, so
How long have we known about it?
the bridge sufficiency goes down when the posting goes down, so there's a lot of safety built into the 20 tons. I mean, I'm not gonna allow a bridge to stay open. I closed the Cobbin Bridge when it got unsafe. I'm not gonna allow this bridge to be unsafe. I'm putting my neck on the line too, that I'm guaranteeing that 20 tons is a safe weight. As long as people obey the weight limits, it's a safe weight.
Supervisor Seidlitz.
Well, they kind of both answered the question I had because I was concerned about the school bus and the 20-ton limit and what kind of measures we were taking to ensure that that 20-ton limit was a safe, and a good limit to have on it. But I think you might have answered that, answering David. So
Initially, the recommendation was 30 tons, and I pushed it to 20 tons. So there's 10 tons of safety built into that.
Supervisor Guzman? Well,
Oh, no, you answered my question.
I assume it's a cancel. That's why, I've not seen the red before. I assume that was,
I clear it, so.
yeah, I assume that's what happens when somebody clears. I have not seen it before, so I assume your question was answered.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of comments. I appreciate what you're doing, Mr. Kelly, and I appreciate the questions by my colleagues here in regards to the safety for students, and you know that I represent part of that area as well. EMS is one thing, but the school district and getting kids across there is also another cost to the school district. The other aspect is that one of the first criteria that you had for the County T corridor was safety. Safety with this bridge probably prioritizes right now over the County T, in my mind at least, when we have a bridge that when you look at the sufficiency ratings, this is part of the reason why Interstate 35 went down before the gusset plates. So, the safety criteria and what could really happen for the County M Bridge, to me, this is a much higher priority. I understand the financial implications and how we're trying to do all of those different things, but that in of itself, I think the sufficiency rating really is pretty indicative of what a higher level of safety that this particular project would be. And the other aspect that I had some questions about is that I know when you're applying for those federal grants, and this one in this case was also was a state grant, that a lot of times those funding applications, again, do not always give you additional points for being much more rural. And I'm just wondering, call with Wisconsin DOT with that particular funding source, is that a challenge? Because that's something maybe we could talk to our policymakers about.
No, I'm at the DOT with that program. There's not a lot of red tape as far as checking all the boxes. It's more like each county submits their projects and you rank them. So when we submit this, it's going to be our #1 project, and they're just going to fund you until they run out of money across the state. So, I mean, I'm not too worried about checking all the boxes on this one. That's going to be very competitive. And it's, I mean, when I was in DC, the WSDOT transportation secretary was there, sat down with him, and he definitely said that the DOT supports the project, that they're committed to the project. They're not going to see that bridge closed on their watch either. So they're committed to getting the project done before anything changes with it too.
And then I also know that you're doing as much monitoring as possible, but I know what happens across that bridge in regard to particular entities that sometimes go across that bridge, and that sometimes those cameras aren't catching folks, and that's a challenge, I think, especially when we have people who do need to go across the bridge that are exceeding that 20 tons. So it's a enforcement piece that is kind of late to the need or the issue.
Yeah, and I mean, I've gone on the news to try and build awareness for this, so hopefully people can realize how serious it is and kind of self-police it a little bit too, or at least let us know if they're seeing it and what time it was so we can deal with it.
Thank you.
Supervisor Hennick?
Thank you, sir. I agree with Mr. Kelly and Ms. Guzman. The safety of those children is paramount over cost. no matter what. And there's no one here that would want to live with the thought of the children passing because we didn't do our job. Having said that, there's technology out there for cameras to be almost invisible. And the cost is not that much. I've had cameras that are smaller than my small pinky thumbnail. There's technology. And if you need to stop the people who are abusing that bridge, you need to stop the people who are abusing that bridge, period. Look into the technology. No one wants to have that on their soul. Please.
And I don't think we're really holding anything up by what we're doing. We're putting $400,000 into getting the design going. That had to happen at this point in the schedule anyway. And if we keep going right into final design when we get the next funding, I mean, it wouldn't happen any faster if we had the 15 million right now. The ball's rolling. We're just paying for some of it locally up front.
I'm talking about technology to catch the people. There's technology, there's cameras that are out there that are so small. Please look into it. Please look into technology and on stopping the abuses. There's just no way that anyone here would be willing to live with that. Spending a couple of bucks on a camera is probably good business.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, move on to the.
Okay. Yeah. So then kind of the last piece of this, just kind of how we put together a funding plan. We work, Randy and Lori and I worked very closely on coming up with a plan that was feasible. And we're kind of assuming some of the worst case scenarios, 17 million for project costs for phase 1. So that's what we kind of use right now, about 2.3 million. 15 million for the Highway M Bridge. Feel like that's pretty high, but that'd be a $5 million local share. And so this is kind of the funding plan we came together, pulling from all the different areas we could pull from to make this happen. And so we took the levy from those projects that we did with ARPA funds, and we moved that already into the T&M projects at the end of 2024. We also transferred the 400,000 of G Bridge savings. We haven't heard yet what's available from other departments, but there was talk of possibly 600,000 closeout funds from the other departments. And then in 2026 would be $1 million of additional sales tax. 2027 and 2028 would be $1 million of bonding over those 2 years. 27 would be another $1 million of sales tax. 28, another $1 million of sales tax. And then in 29 and 30, $2.5 million more bonding. So how that kind of plays out based on the schedules of these projects, in 2024, we did put $1.2 million in the T corridor account and 900,000 in the M Bridge. So that's there. We don't have any money planned for 2025. 2026, half the sales tax in each project. 2027, 250,000 in T, 1.25 million in M, and the same thing in 2028. So that gets you to the end of construction on phase 1 of the T corridor. That's $2.2 million. So pretty much funds phase 1 of the T corridor. And then in 2029, 150,000 for future phases of T, and $1.1 million for the remainder of the Highway M Bridge. We're building Highway M in 28 and 29, so that makes that project fully funded for the second year of construction, and then $1.25 million in 2030 to finish up the $3.6 million that we had in the plan for Highway T. So this is all in our years 26 to 2030 is all in our Highway Department CIP right now. So we could have additional funding come available for future phases of Highway T in a number of different ways. So we feel like 17 million's on the high end. The engineers have told us that larger projects like this are coming in lower. They're using state average bid prices, so those are based on some smaller projects, so we could see some savings. So there could be possibly some savings in that 2.3 million. So right now we have 3.6 million allocated. We're figuring out about 1.3 million left over for future phases. But if we have savings in the Highway M Bridge construction bid or the T Corridor Phase 1 construction bid, or gain any additional state or federal funding, that drives, that creates more funds available for phases 2 and 3 of the T Corridor. Any questions?
No more questions? All right. Thank you, Brian. I'm getting a few signals here. We've been almost an hour and 50 minutes into the meeting. I'd like to take maybe a 5-minute recess. Business. That's all right.
Eggs are hot.
Did I hear that on Pike Lake, a chick sold, who's gonna sell?
Who's that for sale?
He has a, I heard there was actual buyer that like, might actually have.
Then I don't know.
It's all, you know, small town Rumorville.
Yeah, well,
Jim's
Jim, he had, he told me he had 3 buyers.
Put in the agreement.
I did too. I was like,
Keep doing what Jim's doing.
I don't know.
That surprised me when I heard that. It didn't surprise me that he was gonna sell it. I mean, every bar owner gets to a point, bar restaurant owner.
Bought it. That's what it always takes. He said, I'm only running it 10 years and I'm selling.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah, he did. Food's wonderful.
They expanded it.
I had to look away. I didn't. Nope.
No. I don't get out there often enough, but a lot of people know about it. I mean, like, some of my friends that live in Eau Claire, they just text me the other weekend, "One to Shady Nook for burgers, you in?" I'm like, "Don't twist my arm. You're just down the road from me." Like, all right.
There's nothing else
Just
that
go eat on Pike Lake.
still here.
Like, just,
He's coming Friday.
27, go straight eat from there.
I've had on. Then I saw they sent an email like,
Do not leave hungry.
this week will be $110. Like, I don't have time.
Yes. Things out. That'll be interesting. Yeah.
I'm only phasing out of.
Temporary full-time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I got it. Corner of like the S and W that area.
Ryan now.
Okay.
Every meeting.
Oh, yeah. I
Every
think it's been a lot of years. Did I go into their contest? How big it was?
Busy.
Just had 11 years ago, I think. 11 years ago, my mom won first place crappie. You know.
That works out nice.
Never seen like, he was gonna fuck it. Got home. No, you're not eating.
They got a lot of big crowds. What's the future?
I have a feeling. Still too long.
It pays for more than gas. My daughter's doing that right now. Babysitting job. And basically, I like my game for you. Trip out there. Sometimes you gotta do.
Rubber meets the road where you're
You could get my guess. Usually no one says anything. We're going to let Bobby.
Yeah, we're looking for a.
It's a neat little lake. I got good food there.
I think
I'll drive some
so she can live there.
It's like, asking.
She's like 99 meters. It's fine to be nice to get something a little bit newer.
I don't know
All right, gotta get back over. It's good seeing you. Take the long walk. Take the long walk.
Chicken's about probably the only thing I haven't had there.
Yeah, the light can,
Crazy.
and they dim the lights out there. Never been to a play where they, I don't know if they still do that. Back in the day, you'd have a dish play, and the lights would go on and off twice. Back in.
That's how I was.
It's 72 here. We turned it up, but that was now 2 hours ago. Now you've just a climb into it.
Good thing I'm catching up on my sleep. The last few nights I've gotten at least 8 hours sleeping, so. Otherwise, it's here up for 4 in the middle of the night.
Yeah, I was really concerned about the, sounds like it's gonna be the carbon. That's what,
It's up for renewal.
hopefully that,
This, by the end of March, so
that's what.
I got too much inventory on the lot.
Finish.
Plus my mom with Alzheimer's in Eau Claire. I'm not
Okay, I think I would like to,
selling every.
could I have your attention, please?
Knock on it, knock on it.
Okay, we can resume. I think everyone is back now. I believe it.
Yes.
So move on to the business items. Resolution 4-24, the resolution to support Brightspeed's PSE grant application.
Resolution number 4-24 or 25, resolution to formally support Brightspeed grant application for broadband infrastructure funding from the Wisconsin Public Service Commission's Broadband Equity Access and Development Program. Now therefore be it resolved that the Chippewa County Board of Supervisors, by the passage of this resolution, does hereby endorse and support Connect Holding 2 LLC doing business as Brightspeed as a BEAD program applicant and Chippewa County broadband provider, and supports the construction of unserved and underserved communities in Chippewa County highlighted within the Wisconsin Public Service Commission broadband map as part of the BEAD program, as administered by the Wisconsin Public Service Commission, to make Chippewa County fully covered with broadband access as stated, forwarded to the county board by the executive committee.
Entertain a motion to approve.
Later, so moves. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I don't believe they're representatives.
Yeah, Kelly's not here, he's at exec, so I'll make this quick, but Brightspeed bought out CenturyLink, if you're familiar with them. They are gonna be fiber to the house, and again, it's basically the same thing you guys passed, was it last month or the month before? For the other telcos that are trying to get points for doing the BEAD, pull down the BEAD fund. Pretty straightforward. Any questions? That I can answer?
Yeah, Supervisor. Supervisor.
Be more of a comment, mainly because they're not here.
Oh, you are? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were here for, you want to come up and introduce yourself?
Sure.
Yeah. Not Kelly, oh, because I've.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
I apologize.
We have Monty.
I was,
No.
I just told you weren't here, so.
Good evening, my name is Monty Parker. I'm actually not in the government affairs part of it. I'm the senior manager for the engineering and construction portion of these builds. I'm from Shell Lake. That's where we're born and raised and still are at. So Kelly said, show up and see if there's any questions. See what I can do. I'm not prepared to do anything. I can, try to answer the questions.
Do you have any fiber customers in Chippewa County at this time?
Business customer, but not residential customers at this time.
And I guess my comment would be with this is we had 2 local companies last time that have fiber residential customers in this, and they're seeking the same funding as you. And I've been told that by us approving this resolution gives them points through this grant application. So he's looking to get the same points as the other two that we've had business with in the past, given money to personally in the past. So why do you think we should support your company when these two have been here putting fiber down and we've supported them for the last 5 years and now you're coming in? Why?
Brightspeed's a different company. Prior to this, it was Lumen Technologies. Brightspeed purchased 20 states from the Lumen Technology, everything east of the Mississippi River. I've worked for Century Telephone since 1993. This is not your regular telephone company. We're building right now with our own, not grants, but in the state of Wisconsin, Spooner, Chautauqua, Shell Lake, Ashland, Hurley, many communities, we are replacing our copper facilities. And that we're doing it without any grant funding. So that is something that it's different. We're new, started in 2022. We have a lot of sins in the past from the company that was purchased. We understand that. But for all the years that I've been in the industry and worked this, and I'm from the technical side. I do the engineering and construction. I'm not on the sales side of it. We're excited. We're seeing a lot of money being put into rural America. Prior to that, it was what we called the NFL cities. It was Minneapolis. It was Seattle. That's where all the funding went to. Can I say that, we're the same company? No, we're not. We're completely different. So these other companies that have been doing the grants, getting the grants and putting the fiber in the ground, the parent company that we had previous would not allow us to do that. They would not go after these small grants. They're after the very large metropolitan areas. And the projects I just mentioned right now are in progress right now. It's not future. They're being built right now. There's the Forest, Ripon, Oconto, Black River Fall. So all these smaller communities that have been forgotten, they're coming in and taking care of. Now we're trying to expand that into the rural, outside of the city limits, if you want to call it.
Supervisor Erickson?
Are you guys gonna be taking care of the city of Stanley?
Yes, that is on, yep.
Now, I tried CenturyLink, and you kind of made reference to them, and I hope you guys are not gonna give as bad a service and customer service as they do. We won't go into that. But give you an example. I tried to use CenturyLink, and of course, they're promising all this, and they're going on, and then finally they tell us, well, Stanley was wired with 26 gauge instead of 24 gauge wire, and that's why we can't provide the speed, and every time it would rain, we get heavy rains, we'd lose our service. If I would want to go with Brightspeed, am I going to have to put up with all the same infrastructure that's in Stanley right now? Is that what I'm going to have to live with?
And so right now, we are not expanding the copper network. To your point, when Stanley was built, 26 gauge copper was the industry standard. That was way before HSI or DSL was being, so there's no way that we could actually take that old infrastructure from the 80s, the 70s, and put that into the new technology. Just could not do it. What we're doing now is 100% fiber from the office to the home. Also, when we build, we're not going by a 30% take rate. We are building network for every address that's within that footprint, that design. There is a port assigned to every address at that point. So we're trying to future-proof also. And of course, putting the fiber in the ground. Now we're limited to electronics and not the infrastructure like you're talking about, not the 26 gauge.
But are you going to replace the entire city, or is it just areas of the city done?
No.
Entire city?
It is a like you see, I think there was a presentation of a polygon.
Yep.
Everything 100% within that polygon, every address that's a 911 address does have network capacity for it.
And I know what you're talking about. So that polygon, if it's like white, then that's not being covered, correct? I think,
And the BEAD is different than what we're doing here. BEAD is just starting. What I'm talking about is projects that are happening right now. There's no colors, no grants. We just draw a polygon around the city limits, and every address within the city limits has network capacity to serve.
well, I'd like to get your card so I can check things.
Absolutely.
We've just put up with it so long, and we've got a house, 2 houses away that can get high-speed fiber, and across the street, it's not available, can't help you out, too bad. And it gets very frustrating.
I agree. Like I said, I grew up here. I grew up in Shelby.
Just make sure I get your card before you.
Well,
I'll give you my address, check it.
this is the first time I can actually go out and have dinner without somebody threatening my life. So,
I'm not threatening. Thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Okay, if not,
thank you.
thank you. Now I'll call the vote for this. Okay, release. And the resolution is approved. Item 2 is Resolution 05-25, resolution to pledge funding for expansion of County Highway T corridor.
Resolution number 5-25, resolution to pledge funding for expansion of County Highway T corridor. Now therefore be it resolved that the county board recognizes the need for and economic benefit of a future 4-lane expansion of the entire County Highway T corridor. And be it further resolved that the county board directs the county administrator and highway commissioner to sign the attached 5-party intergovernmental agreement which commits Chippewa County to paying for 32.66% of Phase 1 local costs. And be it further resolved that the total local costs for Phase 1 are currently estimated at $4 million to $7 million, of which Chippewa County's share is estimated to be between $1,306,167,000 and $2.2 million. And be it further resolved that the county board acknowledges that portions of future County Highway T corridor phases lie within Eau Claire County. And be it further resolved that funding for Chippewa County's share of local costs for remaining County Highway T corridor expansion work will be identified in future county budgets and capital improvement plans. And be it further resolved to keep the county board apprised of the progress of the County Highway T corridor project. The highway commissioner will provide an annual report on the project during the capital improvement budget process, which will be presented to both the highway committee and the county board, forwarded to the county board by the executive committee.
I will entertain a motion to approve.
I second.
We have a motion and a second.
Who made the motion?
George.
Thank you.
Discussion?
I just wanted to start out because I sent out information about annexation that came up at the highway committee meeting, so I did my best to find an expert in that field. I didn't know there were experts in that field until the question came up. So if there's any questions on that, feel free to reach out if there's any questions about that right now, because I did talk to the individual a little more too about annexation stuff, so, and taxation. I'll talk to Patty and learned a lot about annexation and how that all works. So if there's any questions on that, I could try and help. And then Brian will give his portion.
I have a quick question for you. Page 4, your page 4 and then number 5 under economic development. If there is an increased economic development, does the county get additional sales tax revenue? And you put good question, however, I do not know the answer. Do you have an answer?
Yeah, that wasn't mine. That was the response from the expert. So what I found out is any sales tax, cities and villages and towns don't get sales tax. It only comes to the county. So if there is an increased sales tax, it will come to the county.
So we should know about that already, though, shouldn't we? Because Country Jam being on there, we should be getting a kickback from the sales tax on that, shouldn't we?
Yep, if they're getting additional sales tax, yep.
Know that in our budgets or revenue that see what we got, coming in and stuff?
Yeah, so I've done the deep dive in sales tax to try and figure it out. It's very high level, industry level sales tax. Like, it's very difficult to get it. Like, I tried getting it for Menards because I wanted to see if the new Menards came in, how much we'd get. They do all their sales tax by all the Menards in the city, or all the Menards in the state. So
And
I don't know if I could find that answer for
a
you.
quick follow-up, everywhere is in there, and I'm assuming if the city's in the same county, is that where the 5 years lands? Or does the 5 years, where it says after 5 years, the annexing city takes control of the stuff? Is that gonna be with the county, even though it's in Chippewa County?
Yeah, so there's really no impact to the county. It's all between the city and the town. So the township currently gets taxation from those residents. All that money's gonna go to the city. And there's a statute, I think it's even referenced in there maybe, that they have 5 years to come to do that. So it's all not a hit in 1 year. Over a 5-year period, whatever is annexed will eventually go to the city of Eau Claire instead of the township. But it doesn't affect the county.
Supervisor Ives?
Yeah, a quick question. I don't know if it's this time or next time, but I just had a question on line 57 of this resolution. In Brian's presentation, he had put 32.67, and this is 32.66. I know it's a 0.0 percentage, but it does make kind of a difference sometimes in the scheme of money.
Yeah, I don't have an answer, and you have to ask Brian, but.
That was
might be-
That was what, Eau Claire County had that in the intergovernmental agreement, I think, so that kind of got missed, but, I mean, it's probably 32.67 if we really needed to amend that.
32.666. So it's around.
I just wanted to make sure it was right.
You're reading, that's good.
Okay, Supervisor Shoebridge?
This isn't an annex, it's more of, you made a comment that this may become, could become a state highway instead of a county highway. Can we push that as opposed to see if it happens in the future, or how does that work?
Well, the state's not just gonna do it if you ask them to, but yeah, it would have to be legislatively, which we're all looking at that in the future, of doing that. There's really nothing's happened yet to do that. That would be the end goal.
Supervisor Bergeron?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick clarification question and then just a broad statement. When it comes to the town of Wheaton, given that they've signed their intergovernmental agreement, it's safe to assume that this has been at their town board, they've voted, they understand the plan and have opted to be a part of this agreement.
Yeah, they're very good about attending all the meetings. And we have monthly meetings that they're at with us, and they're very involved. They participate in all the discussions, offer input on everything, so they're definitely a partner in this.
Right. And then just a general statement would be, if history shows us anything, we can slow progress, but we're never going to stop it. This road is almost arbitrary to the growth that's coming from the south to the north. It's happening right now. It's going to continue to happen. And at some point, whether it's right now or whether it's 5-6 years in the future, we're gonna have this same vote. It's coming whether we like it or not. And history would also say that the cost of this project is not going to go down as we wait longer and longer. And with this $10 million of federal funds being put into this, for this project alone, we can't divert that. This will be the lowest cost share number our taxpayers will ever see on the potential of this project. So even if we don't like the concept, which I don't, the sprawl is happening and it's happening at a rate faster than I think we all realize. From a fiscal standpoint, this will be the lowest impact to the taxpayer of Chippewa County that we will have an opportunity in the next 10 years. And it's going to happen in the next 10 years whether we like it or not.
Supervisor Whitman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If we wouldn't do the County T project, would some of those funds be able to be put towards the county?
No, I think that would just go back.
Would just go back.
Yep.
Thank you.
Supervisor Seidlitz?
I just got one last statement. This is gonna be the gift that keeps giving. Obviously, we're talking about phase 2 and 3, so we're gonna be on the hook for phase 2 and 3 when we're through it for this driveway to Eau Claire. And all I've been hearing about is wheel taxes for the last, probably month and a half now. I don't wanna shove wheel taxes down our, residents of our community. And just so you know, the Wheatontown Board, a lot of times, they don't take the residents in consideration as much as what I do, because I answer the phone calls, I answer the emails that everybody gives me, and I know what the opinion is on that side of the highway, and they're not happy. And I mean the south side of 29. So I just hope that some people turn this one down and look towards the county highway on bridge.
Supervisor Peterson.
I guess I would just want to say that I support doing this. Like Bergeron said, this is our chance to get it underway, and I'm not here to fight Wheaton's battles against Eau Claire. This is Chippewa County. It's a Chippewa County highway, and it needs to be upgraded for the traffic that it's going to have to handle.
Supervisor Schubert.
I understand we need the growth, we like the growth, we've got the tax revenue coming in, but it sounds like it's about 10 years down the line. And the fact that I've been hearing that we don't have the money to maintain what we have bothers me. Raising taxes, especially at this time in our culture, is not good. It's not good. We have too much inflation going on, a lot of questioning things coming from the federal government. And so I recommend that we push it off. We have 10 years to put it down the road a few years to see how things are going.
I think the 10 million does have to be allocated by 2029, so if we push it off, can't use it in a different phase, we would lose it.
Any further questions, comments? Supervisor Goodman.
Could you just follow up a little bit more with that? You said that the funding, if it wasn't used, but it had to be used by 2029.
It has to be allocated by 2029, which means it has to be assigned to a project and the plans in place and everything ready to build the project. So.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Erickson.
Yeah, thank you. Just a clarification. If we would vote this down, then Eau Claire could take the total 10 million and work from the south end instead of working from the north end. Would that be a correct statement?
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? All right, thank you then. And I will call a vote on the resolution. Please. The resolution passes 14 yes, 6 no. Move on to Resolution 6-25, the resolution to approve the procedures for public participation in the update to the comprehensive plan.
Resolution number 6-25, resolution to approve the public participation procedures for the update of the Chippewa County Comprehensive Plan. Now therefore be it resolved that the Chippewa County Board of Supervisors does hereby approve the attached public participation procedures for the Chippewa County Comprehensive Plan update as its public participation procedures to meet the requirements of 66.1001, paren 4, paren A, Wisconsin statutes, forwarded to the county board by the Planning and Zoning Committee.
I will entertain a motion to approve.
Supervisor Bergeron, motions to approve.
Schubert, second.
A motion and a second to approve. Discussion? Yeah. Doug?
Good evening. Long meeting already, huh? Zoning's at the end. Again.
Be nicer.
it's time for our comp plan at the county level to be looked at and updated. It's about a 10-year process to from when you have a plan approved to when you should really have it updated. We're running on 14 years now. So we worked with regional planning, or will work with regional planning to help us guide through the process. And what you have in front of you tonight is just a resolution for that public participation component that's tied up in the state statutes. It really just says, we're gonna follow state statutes, we're gonna have open meetings, we're gonna work with local municipalities and the towns on that plan and get it drafted per the state statutes, and then get it in front of the appropriate committees for approval, and then up to the county board. And in a perfect world, you guys will see this next March. We'll see if we can meet that, but our goal is to make sure that we can work with the existing planning and zoning committee as well as the county board to move this project forward. The good thing is the regional planning is working with a couple of the individual towns and municipalities within Chippewa County. They're also working with Dunn County, kind of on the same time frame. So push come to shove, we'll get this thing done, and hopefully it'll be done by the time the next county board gets approved. So is there any questions?
Supervisor Gutman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There was some mention in the plan that there would be information posted at the Chippewa Falls Library. I'm just wondering, would there be any way that some of that information potentially could also be posted, like at the Cornell Public Library, Stanley, Cadott?
I can definitely take a look at that for the additional libraries. We will have all the information on the website, at Chippewa County's website, through the Planning and Zoning Department. And we'll also post all of the notices online as well as in the county clerk's office. But I see your point. We'll try to get some stuff, not try, but we'll get stuff out to the other libraries for posting. Yep.
Any further questions? Okay, if not, then I will call the vote for approval of the resolution. Okay, the resolution is approved. On to ordinance 1-25, ordinance to create Chapter 2, Article 4 of the Chippewa County Code of Ordinances.
Good evening, everyone. I see a lot of weary faces out there, so seeing that I have the unenviable task of being the last business item, I'll try to make this short. This is the first reading. As Judge Lane indicated, this is a new ordinance. This is Chapter 2, Article 4, Security of County Buildings. I would just start by saying this has kind of been the culmination of a significant amount of research of a patchwork of state statutes and ordinances of other counties that relate to the possession of firearms and other weapons. We've done a significant amount of vetting and engaged in discussion with several groups in putting this ordinance together. We've met with the courthouse security work group. We've worked with the courts, law enforcement. We've brought this in front of our department heads group. So there's been a significant amount of work that's been done over the last number of months on this. As you're all aware, the county's been working to address security issues based on the security study that was conducted back in 2012 and 2013. There's been a number of remodeling projects, addition of security officers, fob access, and other initiatives that have been undertaken since then. Clearly, the main goal of those security measures is to make the county buildings safe environment for employees to work and the public to do their business. So this ordinance is meant to complement those security measures that have already been put in place. The ordinance itself can kind of be broken down into two main areas. There's the possession of weapons in county buildings. And if you've read the ordinance, the term weapon is defined very broadly. And we took that from state statutes and based on our research of other county ordinances. The second main area that the ordinance addresses is screening for those weapons. It allows for screening anytime and anywhere in a county building, and it gives our security officers the needed broad discretion to do their jobs. So in terms of where it applies in any county building as it's defined in the ordinance, which would be the entire building housing the circuit court, the buildings housing the Chippewa County Jail and Chippewa County Sheriff's Office, all of the Chippewa County Highway Department buildings, the building located at 21 East Spruce Street, and the maintenance shop located at 109 East Spruce Street. We struggled with this, trying to put together an ordinance like this. You try to think of all the circumstances that may arise, all the what ifs, that type of thing. And when we were thinking about what buildings it would apply to, we ran into a situation where we started thinking, it particularly occurred with regards to our parks. There's, besides 109 East Spruce Street and the maintenance shop at 21 East Spruce building at 21 East Spruce Street, facilities has a number of buildings in the county parks that they oversee. There's a large recreational part of that, for example, with the fish cleaning houses and that type of thing. There's individuals using knives, obviously, to clean fish. So we decided to focus, we didn't run into any conflicts with that, with the recreational purposes or uses of what under the ordinance would be considered a weapon. We decided to focus on the main areas that the county would most likely have the most traffic and the most potential for safety issues. So that's why we limited it to those buildings. In terms of who it applies to, it applies to any person. So that would include employees, everyone in the building, whether they're an employee, the public, elected official, whoever it may be that's in the building, who enters county buildings. And then it applies to, the exceptions for who it applies to are the security officers, which is also broadly defined, include mostly all law enforcement. It would also accept out judges who carry a concealed carry permit, and anyone with a concealed carry permit with the judge's permission, and the district attorney and district attorneys who have concealed carry permits. In terms of the things that it applies to, as I mentioned, it applies to the possession of weapons, and that is broadly defined. And it does give security officers broad authority to screen for weapons. They can both screen and rescreen anywhere in the buildings. There are exceptions to who it applies to or what it applies to. It does not apply to tools or other devices that are used or carried by employees in the course of their official duties. We've got it also doesn't apply to vendors and contractors that provide a service to the county who are using those items in the course of their official duties. For example, we've got a number of employees carry box cutters and, other things that could, under the circumstances, be considered a weapon. We don't want to run into any conflict with those things for people who need those things for their jobs. We had originally, we did not, when we first started this, we did not have an exception for pepper spray. But we had, in our meeting with the department heads, there was significant amount of concern about being able to have pepper spray as an employee. There's a number of employees who are leaving the building late at night, going into a dark parking lot. And we felt like that was justifiable. You know, the federal, I know that the federal government, for the most part, does not allow pepper spray in their buildings. And there, you know, I read a number of articles about how there was significant discussion about that. Originally, they had thought about having them check it in at the door or that type of thing, having some kind of a checkpoint for that. We decided to opt against that. We think it's justifiable that our employees can feel safe at night when they're leaving this building, and we can trust them to use that according to the laws of the state of Wisconsin. It is restricted. It must comply with the state's laws in terms of the amount and other regulations with regards to the size. And so that's about it. This is the first reading. Like I said, if I'm open to trying to answer any questions at this point.
Todd,
Yeah.
can I make a motion that we waive reading of the first and just vote on the resolution?
You can.
Then I would make that motion, sure.
It needs a 2/3 vote.
Yes.
I second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor to waive the second reading. And it's said it requires a 2/3 vote if we want to waive the first reading. Any discussion on this? Yes.
I prefer not to waive it. There's some research that needs to happen, looking into some of the stuff. That's why we have 2 readings. It gives people time to look into it and do the research, talk to their constituents.
Yes, Supervisor.
Kenny? Thank you, sir. I have some questions about the stop and check. So I'd like to have that answered before we vote. Can you define that a little more?
Define,
The ability for the security people to stop anyone at any time.
well, they obviously have to have a certain amount of suspicion before they can do that. I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of probable cause and suspicion, but sure, that is part of it, that they do need to have that. But it allows them to, if they believe that there is a security risk and there's a suspicion that someone is carrying one of these weapons, they are able to screen them at any time.
So at any point, if I'm carrying my computer bag in, they could be uncomfortable with it and ask to search it.
Well, there has to be more than just in discomfort. It has to be a reasonable suspicion.
Thank you.
Supervisor Bergeron.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Todd, is there a rush on this? Is there a benefit to running this through tonight versus waiting till next month?
No, I mean, obviously, the sooner we get this in place, the better, and it can be put into place, but we've waited. I mean, this has been long overdue the way it is, so if it's going to allay, board members' questions to look into this a little more before the second reading, it's not the end of the world. We can certainly wait.
Any more questions on this? And a reminder, so the motion on the floor is to waive the second reading. And partly to make it more, more that we are adamant on it, it requires a 2/3 vote. So anything less than a 2/3 vote is we just go back to first reading again and we consider it later. Call the vote, and the vote is for waiving the second reading. Not for approving it, but it's for waiving the second. Release.
Math.
Is that what you're up?
You're going to have to do this. I can't do it in my head.
Is it 2/3 of who's here or of the majority?
Of those votes.
There's 20. So it's met the
6 to
minimum.
Yep.
So that-
12 is 12 point something something is what we need, or
Yeah.
what was needed.
So that motion passes, so
Okay.
but we've
Better than-
we've waived the requirement for the second reading. So is there any more discussion on the ordinance right now before we take a vote to approve the ordinance? Is there any more discussion? I don't have the thing up. If there,
I gotta wait.
okay, that's okay.
Where you wanna be. So we don't have. We need a motion in a second
To approve.
to approve, but you can have discussion
We had, didn't we?
right now.
I thought we had a motion, a second to bring. Oh, that's right, it was first reading, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's right. So now we need a motion and a second to approve the ordinance.
I'll make that.
We have a motion.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance. Sorry, my bad.
Oh, that's okay.
So now is there any more discussion?
Yes, I just have a comment. So we can carry pepper spray, but my husband, may he rest in peace, he likes bug spray because you can shoot for up to 10 feet, you know what I'm saying? So I have a frozen bottle in my car right now, I'm sure, one by the front door. Just a comment. It's as good as pepper spray. When you see me carrying my bug spray in here, they better leave me alone.
Don't look like a hornet.
Shoots farther.
Any further discussion on this? Supervisor Guzman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Could you explain a little bit more about the conditions upon which someone might be asked to be searched because they seem to have potential?
Well, yeah. You're right. If we did end up having a single point of entry for individuals to come, they're going to be searched right there at the door. So you know that's going to occur. In terms of, most of the screening is probably going to take place at any other time when there isn't a single point of entry up near the courts, where the courts are. And usually, it could occur as long as the security officer believes that there is a suspicion that, or has a heightened interest for the safety of whatever's going on in the courts or wherever it is in the building, they can search that person, ask them to submit to a search. I don't know.
So can I ask a follow-up question? So going back to the pepper spray, if you would come in, myself included, if I would come in and I had pepper spray, maybe even forgot about it because I put it in, I don't know, my gym bag or what have you, and I'm going back and forth. If I'm not a county employee, how does that work as?
It isn't allowed for the public generally to have it in the building.
Okay.
Just employees.
Just only for
and-
the counties themselves?
That's right.
So potentially, if I had brought it in, forgot about it, and for some odd reason I looked suspicious, and they found that, then I could potentially be fined.
You could, but I would assume that they would verify who you are.
Supervisor Mueller.
Yeah, I just have a kind of a question. It's kind of a what if, it's kind of an insight into what, our security guys go through. Number one, if an officer finds someone behaving suspiciously and says, I want to submit you to a screening, and they say, no, you can't touch me. At that point, I think the officer would be safe in saying, okay, you must leave the building because all people who enter, I'm guessing we'll have signs at the door, subject to search, subject to screening. So the public accessing the building will have some information that
what they're subject to, you know, the intrusion. And if a person refuses, and it's not much more than a, you know, he doesn't give any outward signs like reaching for a knife or something, and the officer, security officer asks them to leave and they don't, then you're going to start escalating things. So then, you know, that's when the officer will have to have a little bit higher state of, okay, this guy's saying no to my request, he's not leaving the building. At that point, you know, I'm not quite sure how things could progress, but that's how things tend to escalate. So it basically, most people will comply, probably 99 out of 100. But it's, you know, this is for that one person that, you know, doesn't. So anyway, I'm guessing that would be an option for the officers to say, okay, if you're not going to commit, leave the building.
Right, and it does, under the ordinance, allow them to do that, to escort them out of the building if they don't want to comply with whatever directives they're given.
Any further questions? Okay, and seeing none, we'll call the vote approving the ordinance. Release. The ordinance is approved on a vote of 18-2. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll move on to item 10, county administrator appointments. One, the appointment for DHS director.
Need a motion in second.
Guess we'll look for a motion and a second to approve.
Motion to approve, Ives.
Peterson, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any questions or discussion?
Can't push my button.
Adler, there you go.
There you go.
Yes.
I just wanted to make a comment. I was lucky enough to be on one of the interview panels, and doing this, we had 2 internal candidates and 2 outside. And I just want to say that Bobby is the one we selected, and she showed a lot of leadership. Kind of a lot of the staff looked up to her, went to her for advice and things after Tim was, and stepped in, helped Randy out a lot, and she had a lot of good assets I think she's going to bring to our health and her human services department. And
Any other questions or comments? Okay, then we'll call the vote, to vote to approve.
What happens if I don't?
Okay, please. Okay, the appointment is approved. Before we go on, I would like to invite Bobby to come and say a few words. Congratulations.
Runnings.
Thank you for having me here tonight. I'm Bobby Yeager, and I've had the pleasure of being the economic support manager here in Chippewa County for the past 12 years. I've been on the leadership team the entire time with DHS. I've been the senior manager for quite some time, and in that role, I've gotten the opportunity to kind of dip my toes in a lot of the different divisions, so I've gotten a lot of really good experience. DHS is full of passionate, hardworking people who are truly committed to the best service to the citizens of Chippewa, and I look forward to leading that.
Move on to item 2, appointment to the ADRC board. Entertain a motion to approve recommended appointment.
Motion. Lynn seconds.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion, comments on these appointments? Okay, I will call the vote then to approve.
Hit it twice already.
Okay. Can release. The appointments are approved. Item 3 is the appointments to the Health and Human Services Board. In a motion for approval?
Kemp, you'll second.
Okay, motion and a second to approve. Any discussion, comments here? Okay, if not, then I will call the vote for the appointments to the Health and Human Services Board.
My thing working.
Okay, appointments approved. And on to appointment for Land Conservation Forest Management Committee.
Motion to approve Ives.
Bowman, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion here? Okay, then I will call the vote. Okay. Appointment is approved. On to the Veteran Service Commission.
Kelly makes that motion.
Lots seconds.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of the appointment to the Veteran Service Commission. Again, any questions, discussion? If not, I will call the vote for that one.
George.
Last
He pushed it, I don't know why.
Your turn.
Okay,
Okay.
so that appointment is approved. And last one is appointment to the Ethics Inquiry Board.
Bergeron motions to approve.
Lots seconds.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. Again, any questions, comments? If not, I will call the vote.
I see you voting, but I haven't pushed it yet. So. Wait.
Okay.
I can only go so fast.
We're
Okay. Chambers. That's the last page.
okay, those appointments are approved. Item 11, agenda items for future consideration. Let us know if you haven't. And then before I move on, I would just like to take one moment. This is a historic meeting for us. This is our last meeting from our current administrator. I would just like, on behalf of the employees, on behalf of the board, and mostly the citizens of Chippewa Falls, I would just like to thank him for 7 years of service here. As you said, you came into a very well-run county, and I believe after his 7 years of service, we are even better off than we were before, and we thank him for his. And with that, we move on to item 12.
Erickson will make a motion to adjourn, and good luck, Randy.
Lots seconds.
Okay, a motion second to adjourn. You can push your button, and we can end the night. We are adjourned.